loves. Today we're going to be reading Bembelman's Bakery by Melinda Green. Every time I walk past Bembelman's Bakery, I see the same thing, lines. This Bembelman must be a great baker. That bread he bakes is mostly luck, mister, let me tell you. What do you mean luck? He must be a genius. Listen, there's a story behind this Bembelman. I come from the same village in the old country, and I know. It all began a long time ago, when we were both little boys. Aaron Bembelman, the baker's father, was a hard worker. He was a brickmaker who made bricks 18 hours a day. His wife, Sarah Bembelman, worked just as hard at home. They lived in a poor little house with hardly room enough for their 7 children, and they were a handful. One day in late summer, Sarah had to go out to the market to buy food for the harvest holiday that was coming. She said to her oldest boy, Saul, "You watch the other children while I'm gone, and don't get into trouble. Better yet, don't even leave the house. I'll be home in 2 hours." After Sarah went out, one of the children said, "Saul, I'm hungry, and there's no bread in the house." Saul thought for a moment. "Let's make some. We'll bake enough bread for today and the holidays too. Mama will be so surprised." Yes, let's make bread," they all shouted. "But how do we do it?" asked the youngest. "I think Mama uses 1 handful of yeast," said Saul. "But my hand is smaller than her hand, so I'll put in 4 handfuls of yeast. And she uses 6 handfuls of flour." "Are you sure?" asked Rachel. "Yes," said Saul, "but my hand is smaller than her hand, so I'll put in more." Then each of the children threw in a handful of this and a handful of that and mixed it all together. What a sight! Every little Bembelman was covered with flour and sticky with dough, but finally, with a lot of pushing and pulling, they got their mixture into the oven. The dough began to rise and rise and rise some more. Soon it was pushed out of the oven door. When it reached to the walls, it began to push out the windows. The children got scared. "What will happen when Mama comes home?" they cried. So 2 hid under the bed, and 1 squeezed under the table. 1 sneaked into the closet, and the other 2 sat huddled together in the far corner. Saul stood by the door trembling. Bread was bulging everywhere, inside and out. And Rebecca Bernstein, the town gossip ever since she was 3 years old, ran to the marketplace yelling to Sarah Bembelman, "Oh, if you could see what your kids did to your house." "What?" screamed Sarah. "What have they done to my house?" "You won't believe me. You have to come see for yourself," said Rebecca. Well, to make a long story short, there was yelling and there was screaming and there was praying to the Lord Almighty. And Sarah Bembelman fainted 3 or 4 times when she saw the house. "Where are the children?" she hollered. "They're all hiding," said Saul, peering out the front door. "When your father gets home," cried Sarah, "tired and hungry as he is, exhausted from a long day's work, he'll teach each of you a lesson you'll never forget." And as soon as Saul heard this, he ran into the woods to hide. Aaron took a bite. He chewed it slowly. Wait, make sure that's the page. Okay, I did. When Aaron Bembelman came home, the crowd parted to let him through. He sat down at his dining room table and for a full 15 minutes just stared in stony silence. Sarah wept quietly in the corner. Finally, Aaron lifted his head and said, "So, where's dinner, Sarah?" Sarah began to cry even louder, and through her tears she said, "I can't get near the stove. It's filled with bread." Aaron sat quietly for another 5 minutes. Then he said, "So, cut a piece of the bread." The crowd peered through the dining room window. Sarah gave Aaron a piece. Aaron took a bite. He chewed it slowly. Then he smiled. He took another bite, and his smile grew wider. He ate some more and began to laugh. Soon he was singing and smacking his lips and dancing as he shouted, "Sarah, bring me more bread." "This is not just bread," he cried. "It's meat and potatoes. It's strudel and pie. It's breakfast, lunch, and dinner all at once. It's apples and raisins, vodka and noodles, every taste that you've ever wanted to taste, all in one wonderful bite." The neighbors began crowding into the Bembelman's house. The bread was so good that they fought to taste it. Soon Sarah began cutting off pieces the size of loaves so that they could take some home. The Bembelman children even crept out of their hiding places to taste the bread. Long after every crumb was gone, the neighbors were still coming back and begging for more. Sarah told them she'd have more by tomorrow. Then she went into the woods to find Saul. "Solly, my darling," she screamed at the top of her lungs. "Mama won't hit you. Tell me how you made the bread." There was a long silence. Then, from somewhere in the woods came a voice. "Well, you take 10 handfuls of flour and 4 handfuls of yeast." So the Bembelmans soon sold enough bread to come to America and open their bakery. And even now, nobody can make bread like theirs. Who can copy a recipe that's measured by the hand sizes of the Bembelman children? So, come on, let's all get in line and buy a loaf. Why not wait until the line gets shorter? It never gets shorter, believe me. Besides, I promised my grandchildren I'd bring them a bread from Bembelman's bakery, and I better not come home without one. That was your story for tonight. Good night.